welcome to Hedgehog Hollow. This is one of our monthly subscription box videos. Our design team and myself do around about 10 videos a month in total, or at least 10 lots of inspiration. And we try to make as many of those into videos of how to use your box. One of our sets this month is this beautiful Sending Hedgehogs from La La Land. La La Land is our company of the month. And each month we focus on a different company. And in this box, we wanted to also give you some tips for mail art. Mail art is basically any time you decorate your envelope. So included in your monthly box are these lovely white envelopes. And a few of you have asked me where I got them from. These coloured envelopes we will buy are beautiful but super expensive. These are actually from Amazon. I will pop a link in that description below in your supply list for you as to where we got these from, because you can get a big box of these quite inexpensively. They're still a nice weight. They've got that nice square flap on the back and you can still stamp and decorate on them. But I wanted to share some tips for when you're doing mail art, and you can use this for any mail art option. So the first thing I'm going to recommend is that you put a scrap piece of cardstock inside your envelope. Don't put that pretty card you've just spent hours making inside the envelope to stamp on it. By putting in a scrap piece of cardstock, you can stamp, you can colour, you can do all of those things. Nothing's going to bleed through onto the back of your envelope. It's all going to go onto that cardstock in the middle. The next tip is do not use a dye ink, because if that envelope gets wet, it's going to react with whatever you've put down. So when I'm stamping and colouring on envelopes, particularly if it's a time of year that I think is a little more susceptible to things getting rained on, then I will absolutely use only alcohol-based options. And in this case, I'm using a hybrid ink because that won't run when it gets wet, or if it gets wet. And I'm stamping my little hedgehog on the front. And on the back, I'm stamping with love from our Prickle. Prickle is a group of hedgehogs, and so I call our family the Prickle. And for this, I'm going to be using some Copics. And one of the things I taught in a recent class was that you can do lots of fun things with the nib on your Copic. And so I can just make little hearts. So to make that heart, all you're going to do is, you can do this with any brush pen. So if you have Spectra Noirs, if you have some water-based brush markers, anything that has a brush, all you want to do is lay the tip of the brush and lay it down, which makes your first petal. Then you put the tip at that same point as you had it on the other one, and that makes your second piece there. So you can just practice really pretty hearts. If you do it on the other side as well, you have a really pretty butterfly. If you also put them top and bottom, and sometimes I'll kind of fill in, you really need to do them in a circle. Like that. You have a little flower. So there's lots and lots of things you can do with your brush tips, and practice makes perfect on those. So that's a little thing I'm going to put on my flap on the back. It's kind of my little hedgie in front. I'm going to grab a couple of Copic colours, and I'm going to go with an E30, an E33 and an E37 to start with. So when you're colouring with Copics, you want to use either a water-based or hybrid-based ink pad, and in this case I'm using a hybrid because I know it's not going to react with anything else. And I'm laying down a nice foundation colour. So this is my E30 that I'm laying down. And that's why I'm using an alcohol marker versus the watercolour pencils even, that were included in your set. And you want to make sure you saturate your paper. So whenever you're working with alcohol markers, your base layer, you really want to saturate your colour, which may mean you have to colour over it a couple of times, but you want to be able to see the outline of whatever you're colouring on the reverse side. So you can see there in the centre I've laid down enough colour, and on the outer pieces I haven't. So when you can see it on the reverse side, you know you've put enough ink down. And I'm not going to be able to see that quite as easily in my envelope, but you kind of get to a point where you can see that there's no blotchiness in that base, and you know you're about right. So I'm now going to go in with my E33, and I'm just going to add a little bit of texture to our hedgie here, some depth. And so that piece of paper that I put inside is going to absorb any extra ink, and it's going to stop it bleeding on my envelope. And that's why we pop that underneath. So whenever you colour with an alcohol-based marker, you want to colour on something porous. I would not colour directly on my mat because my ink is going to bleed out underneath when I've got that nice saturation, and then it's going to go outside of my image, which I do not want. And then I'm going to use my E37, and I'm stippling to add some prickles. So you basically want to give him chicken pox with this first colour. And then I'm going to take a darker colour, and in this case I'm going to go with an E39, and in places there'd be shadow, I'm going to add some extra prickles in. So I kind of I'm outlining some of these areas, anywhere where I think there'd be a little more. And then I'm going to use the same colours for his skin so that it all blends really nicely together. So I'm just colouring in his little face, his paws, his legs. I've got a little bit of his spikes down there, so I'll fill that in while I'm going. Then I'm going to do the same with that E33, and I'm just adding in some shadows. Then I go back to my E30 and blend. And I'm going to take my favourite blush, which is the E93. It's my little, I call it a magic marker, because I just add that into those cheeks with a little flick. And I'll lift this up, and you can see there, how cute does our little hedgie look like that? And then we're going to add in a little bit of colour quickly. And this is not a detailed colouring tutorial at all. We do have lots of alcohol ink colouring tutorials. We even have a whole playlist. You can check that out on our YouTube channel, which is where you are now. Just hit that playlist button afterwards. And I will try to link some of those up in the corners, that kind of, those things that pop in the top right. So I'm just going through my BV zeros here, adding extra kind of texture to our envelope. And we go up to BV04. And I just basically went over those lines that are on the envelope there, just to kind of add that little bit of texture. So you can see there how super simple that was. And I'm now going to take a nice green, and I'm just testing out a green there. So I'm going to take a G14, and what we're going to do is create grass. So again, something you can practice with your brush tips, and it can be any brush tip that you have. Is just flicking. Now if you practice your flicking, you'll find that your alcohol ink colouring will improve hugely, but you can also just do these little flicks and I'm doing them around her little feet here so that she looks like she's standing, whee! She looks like she is standing on the grass there. So I'm going to lift her up so you can see her. So she's standing on her little bits of grass. And then we're going to take a B. So yeah, still, even though I have colour charts, I always seem to test out. We're going to take our B00 and we're just flicking around her. And that kind of gives the effect that she's standing in that bluey sky. And then I'm going to go even lighter with a B quadruple 0. And I'm going to fill in between those flicks. And so there she looks like. She's kind of just hanging out in a pretty blue day on the corner of your envelope. And then of course you can write onto your envelope with whatever your favorite pens are. You can use just a regular biro or something, or you can use a pretty brush lettering. So my tips for stamping on your envelope are really adding this scrap of paper inside, because you can see here, now I've taken this out, there's lots of that Copic ink, which there should be, on that piece there. Now that would have either bled through to the other side of our envelope, or it would have bled onto your pretty card, depending on what you had inside. And when you're stamping on an envelope, make sure you use something that's not going to react with water. So either go with a hybrid or alcohol-based ink pad. And then you also want to use something for colouring that's not going to react. If you do want to use something water-based, say you wanted to use some distress inks, or you want to use your favourite watercolours, add a layer of microglaze from Ranger. All you do is either pop that on your finger and rub it in. Less is definitely more, or you can put it on a blending tool and rub it over. That's going to make it completely waterproof. That is what microglaze is for. And if you saw our video at the weekend with Tim Holtz, you'll have seen that he did a couple of demonstrations using microglaze. It dries instantly on contact. You don't have to wait for anything, but you cannot then put anything water-based over the top. So wait till you've finished everything you want that's water-based, and then add that microglaze on top. So I hope you've enjoyed today's top tips. I will also place some links at the bottom of everything I've used. Plus, of course, our wonderful subscription box that this month features exclusive stamps from La La Land. And don't forget, you also get all of your card bases, all of your matting cardstocks. You get lots of inspiration from me and from the design team. We have a new design team starting next month, and we'll be having even more videos from them as well. And of course, you get access to our exclusive subscriber Facebook group and some special coupons to your favourite stores as well. I hope we'll see you there. Happy stamping! Bye!